Once again, it's news night and there's so much excitement this time with over 4,000 EV chargers currently under construction in the UK at this exact moment. There's also news from Europe, America, even Russia. I'm Dave. Welcome to Dave Takes It On. Let's get started. Well, France hit the news headline with its lease, and we've now got a lot more detail. It was initially intended for up to 20,000 people to be able to benefit, and the idea was it was the poor and the needy, the ones who probably could never afford a brand new EV, and also the ones who probably drove around in the most polluting old bangers you can imagine. Well, the French government set aside some money to be able to offer them the opportunity to get an EV. And the deal was, it was originally forecast to be about 50 or 80 euros, turned out in the end to be 100 euros. But 100 euros a month for a lease on a brand new EV. No deposit at all, so as long as you can afford 100 euros a month, about £80, you can have a brand new car. And surprise, surprise, in that list of what cars you could choose, besides the Renaults and the Peugeots, you could get a brand new Model Y for 150 euros a month, about 100 quid. Wow! Well, no wonder it was hugely oversubscribed. They originally anticipated 20,000 people to take it up, but they were swamped and they've had to shut it down. They've not closed it or cancelled it, but they've added extra funds so they can now allow 50,000 new leases, and that's the limit for this year. So once that money's gone, there's no more this year, but there will be budget again next year, 2025. This is an amazing scheme, and it just shows that if you can offer the people an EV at a price they can afford, they will lap them up, they'll queue up for them. So we're going to keep our eye on this and see how many people actually end up with these, but it's a fantastic scheme. So it's interesting to compare that with what we do in London with the congestion charge. People in London who can't afford to buy a better car are being offered a cash incentive to trade their, effectively scrap their old car, and they get offered a couple of £1,000. Well, surprise, surprise, a couple of £1,000 to someone who drives around in a banger already is not going to be able to afford to buy a brand new EV. So all it did was put a couple of £1,000 in their pocket, and they went out and bought another ICE car, maybe a little bit newer but not quite as polluting. France got this one right. If you're going to subsidise, make it so that people can actually use it. Now, the UK EV charger scene is absolutely frenetic at the moment. The pace of installation is amazing. And we're just looking at rapid and ultra rapid. I call them RURs, rapid, ultra rapid. And the number being installed is well over 4,000 at the moment. Now, let me explain what 4,000 is. This is charger locations which have received planning permission where construction has actually started but has not yet completed and open to the public. So anything new that's just opened recently doesn't figure in this figure, and there are some figures for January to show what that one is. However, this is for brand new ones yet to come, and all of these are anticipated on being open this year. More than 4,000. Now, we're going to be producing a special video on this over the weekend and early next week to show exactly where these are going in, which counties, which areas are getting the best deals, which of the charger networks are installing the most. And those results will absolutely astound you. They are not what you think. And no, Tesla is not the #1 installer in the UK on this measure this year. Well, VW seem to be in panic mode at the moment. They've been witnessing China sales falling dramatically and their customer unhappiness rising dramatically. They just aren't producing the same sort of car that people in China can buy from local suppliers. The Chinese really are making some very, very nice cars, and the European efforts, that's VW, BMW, Mercedes, Audi, their efforts in China are just falling on deaf ears. There are much better models at a much cheaper price available to the Chinese. This could mean the end of Volkswagen in China. They've appointed someone to go over there and negotiate to see what can be done, but if they can't produce the cars, they're not going to sell any. Now, VW makes about 50% of its profit from its sales in China. So the end of VW in China is a pretty serious step. We'll keep an eye on this. Well, in Germany, things are not an awful lot better. The German legacy manufacturers, the BMWs, Mercedes and Audi, are finding it difficult to sell their overpriced cars. Now, I have no objection to EVs from those manufacturers, but they are selling them at a 50 to 100% premium over and above the direct comparison cars with an ICE engine. This just won't work. People will not pay 50% extra just because it's got a battery in it. And now the EV suppliers, they're facing job cuts as well. As the EV sales fall, the legacy auto slows down production and the EV suppliers are laying off staff as well. Is this an EV problem? No, because one company in Germany is storming away, and it was the best-selling car in Germany last year. Not EV, but the best-selling car. That was the Tesla Model Y. Once again, if you make a compelling car at a competitive price, they will buy it. But if you just stick in a battery and a motor and add on 50% to the price, they won't buy them. Learn your lesson. Renault's having a bit of a comeback. The results for 2022 were very disappointing with a net loss, but 2023 has just been announced as they saw a profit. It's still disappointing compared to market targets, but it's turned a profit, and it's also reporting a good profit per vehicle profit margin, and that's about 7.5%. It's down from 7.9% last year, but this year is running at 7.5%. That's a good profit margin. Renault also will be launching 10 new EVs this year, including the much awaited Renault 5. Once again, we need to see what price they're going to launch this at. I fear because it's going to be a premium brand. Everybody knows the Renault 5 and everybody's awaiting it. I believe they're just going to stuff the price up high. I see this coming in at 30 or 35,000 euros. It won't sell. The Renault 5 was always a budget car, way below 20,000. The EV version of it should also be below 20,000 or very close. Let's see what they do. Well, right at the opposite end of the market, Aston Martin are facing a bit of a bleak future. They did get a cash injection from Geely in China. That makes them now the third largest shareholder in the company. But things are not going well. Their EV entry has cost them an awful lot of money. Their ICE sales have been falling. It's a bit of a specialist market, and that some of that market is being taken up with the EVs, like the Porsche Taycan. So Aston Martin are running into a bit of trouble. I think they need a bit of a miracle, but they're working on it. And it's Lawrence Stroll, him of Formula One fame, who's in charge at the moment. So let's see if he can pull the cat out of the bag. Another premium brand, Jaguar Land Rover, they slowed down their EV progress. A few years ago, 2021, they announced they'd have 6 new EV models launched in 2024, and they've now just revised that down to maybe 4, but in 2025 or 2026. Once again, sell your vehicles at sensible prices, you'll sell all you can make. Overprice them, you won't sell them. Well, Stellantis, still in Europe, their profit fell 10% in the US, and they blame that entirely on the strikes and the resulting higher labour costs. Really? So the strikes in America have caused you to lay off staff at the Fiat factory, which makes the Fiat 500e. Not heard that one before. Again, same lesson. Now, interesting one coming from Russia. You see, Stellantis used to manufacture in Russia under license, and they have factories over there. Well, when all the fuss started, Stellantis pulled out, and they were doing a deal with Russia about what to do with the old factory. And it turns out in the end that Russia did what it usually does. It just commandeered it, took over it, monopolised it, state-owned it, whatever they call it. They stole it. And so they ended up with a pretty new factory over there. And it was making the Citroen C5 Aircross, an SUV. Well, the Russians have actually reopened it now. They've got in touch with the Chinese. The Chinese have offered their help with EVing the Citroen C5 Cross SUV, and they're now starting to manufacture them as EVs. Well, it's quite amazing that the Russians were able, during their crisis at the moment, to actually get a factory up and running, back in production, making EVs. Interesting. In the meantime, Stellantis, they haven't got a factory anymore for making the Citroen C5, so they've had to invest €173 million to build a brand new plant for the, well, let's wait for it, the C5 Aircross replacement EV, and that one's due out in 2025. That should be quite interesting. By the way, if you're liking this and want to see more, please subscribe, click the notification bell so we can notify you next time we launch a video. Well, still just finishing off with Stellantis, they decided to launch the new Ypsilon, a Lancia version, Super Mini later this year. There are going to be full battery versions and also a petrol hybrid version, and we're told this is the last model that they will be launching with an ICE engine in it. With their EV sales the way they are and the pricing the way they are, I can't see that happening. I think the ICE cars and the hybrids are going to continue for a long time more until they can get the price down on their EVs. Well, North America secures a new lithium supply for LG. It's been a bone of contention because some cars like the Ford Mach-E and many of the GM cars are just buying in their batteries from China. And of course, because the lithium and the batteries are sourced and made in China, that it means their cars do not qualify for the IRA, the Inflation Reduction Act, which is $7,500 discount per car. So with a new lithium supply sourced for America, it means that those, once they start getting these battery factories, which have all been put on hold or cancelled, back up and running and manufacturing in either America or Mexico, or even Brazil, anywhere on the American continent, then those batteries are going to qualify the cars for the IRA. Because LG has worked closely with Tesla all the way through, then those batteries will almost certainly end up as the 4680s, which are hailed as a much higher power to weight ratio than anything else on the market. We've not seen them arrive yet in any decent numbers. Now, when Tesla did the upgrade, the refresh to the Model 3, it was called the Highlander, people like Matt Watson and Fully Charged, they drove the new car and they said it was actually like driving a new car. It shouldn't have been called an upgrade or a refresh. It should have been launched as a brand new model because there were so many changes. Those included things like soundproofing, double glazing all the way round for sound deadening, a bit better performance, a lot more features inside. But one of the biggest things everybody commented on was the suspension. They said it was like a totally different car. Well, Tesla's now come out and they've announced it actually is a totally unique and a brand new suspension. It is an adaptive suspension. They're using all the latest technology so that it acts as if it was an air suspension. And that is quite amazing, because I, on my Model S, have the air suspension, and on the recent test drive on a Model Y, the ride quality was totally different. Totally. If Tesla can get the Model 3 and the Model Y to drive like it was on air suspension, that is a record breaker. I'm looking forward to trying one of these on a test drive. We're also looking at Mexico and Brazil. BYD now looks set to follow Tesla and set up in Mexico. Once again, this will be for the IRA so that they can supply batteries and battery packs that are made on the American continent and therefore qualify for the $7,500. That will open up the market again for Ford and General Motors, who recently have dropped out of the IRA banding simply because they were just buying in battery and battery packs from China. So interesting to see when and if they'll start, where they'll start, and when that factory will be ready. In the meantime, General Motors launches their new Equinox. It's a long-awaited SUV on the smaller end, and it was designed to launch at $30,000, and it's launched at $35,000 for the base model, which is not yet available. The model they're launching is going to be $40,000. Once again, if you can't launch at your price, don't announce it. Now, looking to Tesla, they've announced that they've actually started building a simply massive EV supercharger station with 164 stalls, 164 individual chargers, every single one under a canopy made up of PV panels. First of all, this is the largest that's ever been attempted anywhere in the world. There's nothing like this anywhere else. But secondly, it's now under a PV canopy. And this is very important because in addition to the 164 chargers and a massive PV canopy, they're also going to be installing a mega pack. And that mega pack is a battery, for those of you who aren't aware of it. That mega pack is going to be trading power all day, every day, and making millions on its own, besides the profit that Tesla will make on the charging. Now, I did a video on this about 7 or 8 months ago where I predicted one day every Tesla supercharger would have a full PV panel alongside it, and every single Tesla supercharger would become part of the grid, buying and selling electricity right throughout the day. Looks like my forecast is coming true, and this is the first of those. Well, Ford always want to capitalise, jumping on the bandwagon, and they're offering a free CCS2 to NACS adapter to all Mach-E and F-150 Lightning drivers, so they can start to use the Tesla superchargers which Tesla are opening up to non-Teslas. That's a lovely move by Ford. What it means is that the long-suffering EV drivers will now at least be able to charge at a fantastic rate and get access to the largest EV charging network in the world for rapid and ultra-rapid chargers. We're not talking about 7 kilowatt. There are bigger networks for 7 kilowatts. But it does mean that Ford drivers now will be able to get a decent charge. It's a bit ironic, though, that every single Ford Mach-E and F-150 Lightning that drove off the production line cost Ford about $40,000, just losing money on every single vehicle. And those vehicles immediately now will head straight to the nearest supercharger, and Tesla will be raking in a profit from each of those vehicles. I think that's a classic irony. In the meantime, Hertz continues shedding its Model 3 and Model Y. It found them not producing the amount of profit that they needed or the demand that they anticipated for them to be able to make the sort of profit they want. So they're binning them, selling them off cheap. You can pick them up at an absolute bargain, and there's nothing wrong with them. It's just that Hertz doesn't like the business model. They're depreciating faster than they anticipated, and the demand is less than anticipated. I think maybe someone should look at whoever did that model in the first place. If they'd got it right, maybe they wouldn't have bought them at all, or they'd have accepted that this is a new model for EVs. Anyway, in their place, they're going to go out and buy more gas guzzlers. Well, short term, they give a better profit, but several states in America have already announced that they are going to ban gas stations, new gas stations, anywhere in those states. And sooner or later, that's going to have a knock-on effect and ban existing ones. Well, the media once again jump on the bandwagon when it comes to Tesla, and they guess rather than report the news. There was a Tesla recently that was involved in a fatality. There were two people in the car, both of them well over the drink-drive limit, one of them 3 times, the other 2.5 times. And the press immediately reported that this vehicle was speeding, crashed, killed the driver, sadly, and badly injured the passenger. And it was on FSD, which they were using because they were too drunk to drive. Well, truth has now come out. There's a full statement from Tesla, which is going off to NHTSA, the safety board. And in fact, the car didn't even have full self-driving loaded. It could not have been used. They didn't have it. So maybe the driver being 3 times over the legal limit was the reason why it crashed. I do wish the media would actually get their facts straight before publishing a story, rather than putting a one-line retraction several months later at the bottom of page 17. Well, the Luddites are out in force in San Francisco. Waymo driverless taxis are still on the road in San Francisco, and they're now being targeted. One recently was stopped and set on fire. What is going on? These cars, if successful, and they have a pretty good track record so far, they don't have any deaths to their name, but these will offer cheaper taxi fares and safer driving to passengers in San Francisco. Why are people fighting against safety? Also, sticking with Tesla, the charging fiasco in Chicago, that hit the headlines with all frozen chargers, according to the press. Once again, it wasn't. What was happening was that people were simply arriving with a stone cold battery at about -40 centigrade. And at that temperature, no battery, forget Tesla, no battery will actually take a charge without doing serious damage. So these cars were simply plugging in the charger, and the battery management system got together and said, we can't do anything until it warms up, so they switched the heaters on. Well, Tesla, I love the instant response from this. This was only a few weeks ago, but they've already issued an over-the-air update, totally free of charge. And what this does is this modifies the display when you go and charge. It now ensures that if you select a charger, it will automatically just turn on preheating. But now it does 2 extra things. The first thing it does is it will tell you if there are any vacancies at the time you're expected to reach it. This is predictive. And in doing so, it also looks at other cars that have also programmed it into their sat-nav that will arrive before you get there. So you will now see, for example, There are 4 spaces going to be available when you get there, but there are 2 other Teslas on the way there at the moment, so you should still have a choice of chargers when you get there. That's a major, major upgrade, and that's free. The second thing they now do is they now put on a timer for which the battery needs to get up to temperature to be able to charge at the best possible speed. So it will tell you this battery is so cold it's going to need 49 minutes of preheating before it will get up to the correct temperature and it will charge at the faster speed. Because don't forget, most Teslas will take 15 to 20 minutes to charge. That's all. And that means no queues if everyone's doing that. The problem is, people who know where the charger is no longer program it into their sat-nav. So the car arrives with a totally stone-cold battery and they wonder why they've got problems. Well done Tesla for sorting it out, but come on you EV drivers who haven't even read your instruction book. Find out what your car does and how you can stop that happening in the future. Because the simple fact is, had everybody turned on the preheater on the battery, and all Teslas can do this from the app while you're having your breakfast, they could have programmed the Tesla to arrive at a charger at a set time, and the battery would have started preheating before they even got in it to make sure it got there at the right temperature. This is all built into the car. This is why you buy a Tesla. The software's there. But these idiots don't read the manual. And then they queue, and then they blame the chargers, and the media laps it up. Read your book. Well, despite licenses being issued in China last year, it's all gone quiet on the robotaxi front. There are rumours coming out of Tesla. There are rumours from Chinese manufacturers as well. But I'm surprised they haven't yet actually hit the roads. Or maybe they have and nobody's letting on at the moment. This is going to be a closely guarded secret. So if someone can crack this properly, get it working safely and much more efficiently than human drivers, there's a massive market out there, and being the first to launch it will give you a massive boost. I suspect there's a lot going on in the background, and I think this year we're going to be finding those cars hitting the road more and more often. Well, a lot of people complain about cost of insurance. Now, my Model S is nearing time to replace it. It's coming up to 8 years old now. I do a reasonable mileage, so it's probably a good time to start thinking about changing it. And I saw recently there was the launch of the Kia EV9. And that caught my eye. It looked quite good, and Kia actually make quite a reasonable car. Just out of interest, I thought, let's get a quote. Now, I'm with Direct Line, and Direct Line have a quote app, and all you do is you put in all your details. When it asks for a registration number, you tell it I haven't bought it yet, and it just carries on regardless and asks for the model and the make and everything else. So I entered in all my details. I entered in Kia EV9, brand new, and the quote came out, and it's £100 less than I'm paying at the moment. That's interesting. Well, first of all, these are no dearer. Everyone's saying that insurance prices are rocketing away. Not in my experience. But the Kia EV9, brand new car, and that one's just slightly cheaper than my Model S. That is interesting. I'm just going to end now on a few photographs. As I spend a lot of time searching for information, I come across weird and wonderful websites and entrants. Used to be Twitter. And there's so much funny stuff out there. And several of these really caught my attention. So thanks very much for watching so far. That's it. If you do like the video, please subscribe. Click the bell icon so we can notify you. And also, if you want some of the in-depth videos that we're now starting to make, please consider joining us as a Patreon member. There are huge advantages for doing that, and you'll find those out over the course of this month. But have a look at it. Details down below. It's patreon.com/Dave Takes It On. In the meantime, I'm going to leave you with some amusing pictures. I hope you find them amusing. I certainly did. I'm Dave. Well, thanks very much for watching. If you have enjoyed this video, please click the like button. And if you'd like to see more, please subscribe and click the notification bell so we can notify you next time we launch a video. And a massive thank you to all our Patreon supporters. It is your support that enables us to go out and make these videos for you. So thank you very much for your contribution. I'm Dave.